Hello friends, thank you for joining me. Today I'm going to show you how to make this beautiful coasters using a combination of walnut and epoxy. To start off, I'm going to pick out a walnut board that I have lying around my workshop. It's about 1.5 inches thick, 7 inch wide, and 13.5 inches long. First, I'm going to start processing it with the joiner to make sure the two sides are square. Then I'll switch to the table saw and square off the remaining side. Once all the sides are square, I'll start resawing it on the table saw. I can raise my blade up to 3.25 inches, so that gives me about 6.5 inches of resawing capacity. The trick when resawing on a table saw is finding the center of the wood after accounting for the curve of your blade. Then all you have to do is cut and flip it 180 degrees and then take small chunks at a time by raising your table saw blade. You don't want to raise your blade too much and overload your saw. It can be dangerous if you do that, so slow and steady gets the job done. Once I split my board into two, I realized it's still too thick for making it a coaster. I've seen many videos and other people's posts where they've made these beautiful coasters, but they're too thick for my liking. So I'm deciding to split the board again, once more resaw it, and keep it around 1/4 inch thick. Next, I do some light sanding to get rid of the saw blade marks. Then I start outlining a cut line of where the epoxy river is going to be. Once I have my outline on all 4 pieces, I then start cutting the wavy curves out using the jigsaw. Then I use my Dremel with the extension shaft to clean up the curves using the sanding block. I really like using this extension shaft. It makes it so much easier to do carvings, engravings, sanding, and many other things you'd normally use a Dremel for. Now that I have my pieces ready, I'll start making the mold that will hold the epoxy. It's always a good idea to line the surface of your mold with tape or other material such as mold release so that it will not stick to the epoxy. I'm doing things a little different this time. I'm gonna use the hot glue instead of the quick dry caulk that I've used before. The glue is so much faster to cure and not only adds a tight seal, but it should also provide extra support. Here the glue was sitting a bit proud, so I had to trim and sand to get the piece of wood to sit in firmly. There are many ways to do it, but the detail sander came in handy. Now I'm finally ready to mix the epoxy. I measure using its weight. FYI, before you mix, read the label as a 2-to-1 ratio in mass. Doesn't necessarily translate to 2-to-1 ratio in volume, mainly to the difference in density, so read the label and you'll be good to go. It was pretty cold inside the workshop, and the epoxy needs a temperature between 18 to 25 degrees to properly cure. So I ended up moving it to an empty room inside the house. Now you don't want to have epoxy curing in your living space as it will release fumes. So be careful so that you and your family don't get exposed. So the epoxy came out all right. I let it cure for a while, and now it's time to take this form off around it. I found the heat gun and the painter's tool to work great at removing the glue. Next, I work my way around by hammering in the painter's tool and a prying tool and carefully lifting out all the pieces. Yeah, see if this works. Hopefully it does. Because I want to get this project out and go to the next thing. I love using the Rotex 150 in gear mode. It just chews through the wood within minutes and you have a surface ready for prep. Between sanding grits, I like to water pop the wood. A good trick to save time is to use a heat gun right after so that it quickly dries. Yeah, super happy. And Osmo for the finish. Yeah. I want the finish to be durable, so I'm going to lightly sand it with 400 grit and refinish it again. Next, I start trimming the pieces to size. It's much easier to work on one big piece, so it's best to do majority of the processing like sanding, trimming, coats of finishing, etc. before you start cutting it into smaller pieces. Next, I round off the edges to give them a smooth feel when being handled. I want these coasters to be proper, so I bought some cork lining to stick on the bottom side. Now it's the home stretch. I apply the final coat of finish on each piece. I'm very pleased with the way they came out. I hope you enjoyed watching this build. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know, and thank you for watching.